Welcome in. It is week 1 of the NFL. We got the kickoff game on Thursday night. Welcome to the 2022 season. Summer went quick. Here we are in the fall and getting ready for a great matchup week 1. Anthony, you got your hair cut. Looks like you're ready to go
Hey,
too. Right on cue.
fresh cut for the fresh season. You know what I mean, man? I am ready to go, and I couldn't be more excited for the game that's kicking it all off. We've got a fun matchup here between the Super Bowl champs and the predicted Super Bowl winner for this year. So you can't get much better than that. The hype is all there. It's a hell of a kickoff, and we've waited a long time for football to come back, and it's here, baby. We've got football. I can't wait. So excited.
Yeah, time flies, like you look at the schedule in the off season, you're like, wow, why is it September 8th? It seems like it's like mid-September when you look at it, but really it's just the first week. But it always seems like games should start a week earlier for some reason. Maybe that's because of the excitement, but here we are, Thursday night, 8:20 Eastern time in LA, SoFi Stadium. The Bills have a long ways to travel, but what we saw from the Bills in the playoffs, do you think that carries over? Do we see a Super Bowl hangover? Just a lot of things to think about. Where are you watching the game?
I am watching the game here at home in my updated man cave now, which I also got ready. This is Man Cave 2.0 for the season this year. Just moved into my house last year, so had to get the man cave set. Now it's truly, truly ready for an amazing season. Got my big 70-inch TV with the surround sound. Got all my Bills stuff up from years and years of collecting. Yes, I'm a Bills fan for those of you who don't know.
In
But
case
yeah,
you didn't
so
know.
the man cave is very ready for this game, and my oldest brother, who's a Bills fan, is coming over to watch it with me. It's going to be a really good time. Can't wait to see it.
Yes, I'm excited as well. My in-laws just bought a new house, so they're having us over. Going to
Mm.
feed us. It doesn't get any better than that. They just bought one of those frame TVs. Not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but
Yep.
looks like an art picture. So
Hmm. Hmm.
not sure if it's any quality of a TV as far as watching the game, but at least when the commercials are on, we might be able to look at some nice artwork.
There you go.
But anyway, a lot of talent on both sides of the ball here for the Rams and the Buffalo Bills. So I think week 1, usually not a lot of injuries, but one of the keys is who is injured. You know, who is limiting Sean McVay from scheming up a good game plan? Who's missing from the Buffalo defense? All important things when you talk about the two talented teams like this. To start off, Van Jefferson out with a knee, hasn't practiced all week, and his game status is officially out.
Hmm.
How does that impact the game plan for the Rams?
Well, a little bit, right? Was scheduled to be their starting slot receiver, I guess you would say, number 3 guy, and with the 2 in front of him, Cooper Kupp and now Allen Robinson, that minimizes, I think, his impact on the game. And they have pretty good depth behind him, I think, with Tutu Atwell, good young guy there, and Brandon Powell, who they brought on. I mean, they'll be pretty good, I think, in terms of their third wide receiver. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more excited to see, obviously, Cooper Kupp and what Allen Robinson in this new offense could do.
Yeah, for sure. I think Allen Robinson's a huge piece for them. Excited to see Cooper Kupp and what he comes up with. Now that Allen Robinson's on the other side, what does that look like? Lots to see there. Let's flip over to the Bills. Obviously Trey White out, I think, is huge. He's on the
Hmm.
IR for the first 4 games. Um, Outside of that, I think it's full go. We have, Tommy Doyle is listed as questionable, kind of a depth player on the offensive line, and Quentin Morris, who makes the team over AJ Howard at tight end, listed as questionable as well, the third string tight end. So not too bad on both sides, kind of what you expect week 1. I think probably the biggest injury is Trey White being on the IR, and that hurts the team when you're playing a guy like Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about one of the all-pro cornerbacks here in Trey White, and although he had the ACL injury, there was hope he could be back for the beginning of the season. The Bills actually put him on the PUP list, not quite the IR, but same basic concept. He's out at least 4 games, and then he should be able to come back, work his way back. Not sure if he'll be back by game 5 or not necessarily. But yeah, the two players you mentioned, Morris and Doyle, depth players, I expect them to be on the inactive list because they're dealing with injury. Even if they're not listed as out, they'll probably be inactive players from the 53 because you still got to fill that list as well. So not much of a problem on either side, and that's a great thing for these teams going into week one. You never want to have major injury concerns.
Let's pull up the lines for the game. Over under at 52.5. High scoring affair. Bills are the favorites at -2.5. Really surprising to me that the Bills are the favorites because they're the Super Bowl champions. I think they improved this offseason. Um, you know, Cooper Kupp's big year. They're hanging the banner in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Bills have a long ways to travel. So it really comes down to the Super Bowl hangover. Is that something we're going to see, or is it Bills travel a long ways? Because I think the Bills still have, some hangover time from Kansas City and the way that happened. Do you think they'll be motivated, or do you think they're going to both teams will be a little sloppy?
Well, I think both teams are going to be ready to play the season, right? LA's coming off a high of highs in terms of winning the Super Bowl, and the Bills are coming on with something to prove. So, if anything, I think that is what gives the Bills the edge. I think when this line opened, it was actually +2.5 for the Bills, meaning the Rams were the favorite. Now it's moved, I think, with the course of the last few months, the moves that the Bills have made on their roster, the injury concerns for LA that we're going to discuss. There's a couple of things that would have changed this line. And yes, the travel is part of it, but because this is the opening season game, that gives you a lot more time to prepare. They've been preparing for weeks for this, not just, since the last week ended or anything. So I guess that maybe Vegas took that out of consideration in terms of making the line. A little bit surprising that the Super Bowl champion is the underdog. But when you're facing the team that is now specifically the favorites to win the Super Bowl by Vegas's odds, it's not complete surprise here.
Yeah, I did see there's a national media graphic earlier. Everyone picked the Bills for
I
the
did see
AFC to
that. Yeah.
represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Very surprising to me because usually there is some parity, right?
Yeah.
Especially when there's good teams like the Chargers are good, the Chiefs are good. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team that I would consider, even Tennessee, right, or the Colts even. I'm very surprised that everyone's so uniform on the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. But that really shows you what people are starting to think about Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
His potential. I think he's reached his ceiling, but do we have more? Is there room for him to get better? The way he played New England last year, the way he played
Literally
Kansas City,
perfect. Yeah.
I think he just won the hearts of everyone in sports, and we're all rooting for him. And I think that is playing a role here when you're picking Super Bowl contenders. But not so much of that with the Rams. I think everyone, gets on board with Sean McVay, young genius player. But it was pretty mixed bag for the NFC as far as who's picking what team's going to represent the NFC. I don't think the Rams are a slam dunk as much as the Bills.
Right. It seems that way, at least by the experts. But how many times do those people get it wrong, right? They're just guessing like the rest of us based on what the rosters look like and what you're projecting onto. But that tells you that this Bills team is that darn good on paper and what they've proven and track record and coaching and everything else you take into consideration that many people are now on board. As a Bills fan, it's a little concerning because we're so used to being the underdog that now all of a sudden being the favorite, Sean McDermott's going to have to be a little more creative with the bulletin board material. And I'm sure Sean McVay is in the same boat in the sense that they just won the Super Bowl. It's what else do you have to prove? Okay, now we need to prove that we are still good enough and we were the right team to win the Super Bowl. It's not as encouraging of a storyline as we're the underdogs and nobody's picking us, so let's go out there and prove them wrong, right? And in terms of motivation factor. But these players have plenty of motivation on both sides to come out and give it their all.
Yeah, speaking of motivation, I mean, here we go. Josh Allen has insane expectations. When everybody's picking the Bills to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, that's on Josh Allen's shoulders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think expectations have ever been this high for a Buffalo Bills quarterback. I can't speak for those 90s teams. I was too young. I think the media wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
big and in your face as it is today. I think Josh Allen has in tremendous expectations, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the organization as a whole. Do you think it impacts this game at all?
I wouldn't say that it would impact this game too much because I'm not worried about the stat line that Allen's going to put up in terms of if he's going to win the MVP, for example, right? This game is only one in the entire season, and at the end of the day, the expectations are high. But say he does have a bad game for some reason or another, that isn't condemning him in terms of the season. The season is long. You have one game at a time. That's all you can do. I'm sure Josh Allen is going to have a bad game at some point this season. I don't tend to think that it's this game because, they've had time to prepare. He's coming in ready to go, healthy. All of those things are a factor right now and tend to lean toward the favor of, okay, we're ready to play right now, and you're going to get the best of us rather than stumble and maybe get off to a slow start. I guess you could argue having time off and not being in the swing of things yet, but there isn't a lot of turnover on the
Right.
offensive line, on the receivers. There's a lot of continuity, which helps Josh Allen, I think. So even though the expectations are insanely high, Josh Allen knows how to reach those, and Josh Allen isn't concerned with the stat line. Say they end up running the ball and successfully in this game, Josh Allen only has 150 passing yards, but we have over 200 rushing yards. Josh Allen's going to be happy with that outcome, no matter what the expectations were for him in this game.
Right, and I tend to agree with that. Josh Allen's had high expectations before, didn't seem to phase him too much. I think being on prime time, he's actually played well in prime time games, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at Stafford's elbow is the other storyline here with the quarterbacks. It looks like he has some tendonitis. Sounds like it's pretty painful from the reports that I read. Maybe this was from last year as well, but it didn't seem to phase him as much. What do you think about Stafford's elbow having an impact on this game?
Yes, this was one of those things that I think might have affected the line of the game at some point in time. They're saying, okay, now the media, Vegas is aware of this concern and what to make of it. If he was dealing with it last year, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But I could see here that after having the time off, after having the procedure, Stafford has not yet played an entire football game, and now he's going to play an entire football game. So I think it'll be interesting to see if Stafford in the first quarter can match that in the fourth quarter, right? When it comes down to it. I'm a believer in Matt Stafford. I think this guy has proven everything he needs to prove now, being trapped in Detroit, coming over to the Rams, winning a Super Bowl with a Super Bowl caliber roster. That's all you can ask for. And now I would expect him to continue that same trend. He's done what he's done throughout his career. There's no reason to believe he's not going to do it again. Does this elbow injury hold him back a little bit, or are we getting 100% of Matt Stafford? Only the Rams truly know that. And obviously, might be using that to favor then the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I don't see too much of an impact. I mean, unless that surgery that he had in the offseason added more pain or something like that. But the guy played great in the playoffs last year. He won the Super Bowl, obviously. It didn't impact him at all. So I expect minimum impact to this game. But again, things happen in the offseason. Maybe the pain increased. Why is it a story
Mm-hmm.
now? I think media might be reaching for a story on this one, is what my gut tells me.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get into some better bets. The over
Mm.
under on these quarterbacks. Allen is at 276 and a
Ooh.
half yards. Stafford at 273 and a half yards.
Ooh.
It's
Both hovering around
275. I don't know where they come up with these
275.
numbers, but it's 275 for both.
Yeah, that's close, right?
Like 2
Well,
yards. I mean,
275 would be the under for Allen, but the over for Stafford. And I think that's why they do it that way, right? 275 for me is pretty close to where I would, just throw a dart at the wall, say, okay, 275 yards. For me, I'm going to actually take the under 275, 276.5 for Josh Allen. I think he's right around that 270 mark. And the over for Matthew Stafford, because I think they're going to be down in this game at points and rely more on the passing game. So I'll put Stafford just barely above that at maybe 280 yards, and Allen just below at 260, let's say. So I'll take the under on Allen's yardage and the over on Stafford's yards for this game.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go over on both as well. I think both end up in the 300s,
Mm,
over 300s. A lot of hype for this game, a lot of continuity, like we talked about. Last year, Josh Allen had 6 games over 300 yards. Stafford had 7. That's third and fourth in the league. Brady and Herbert were the only ones above them. They both had 9.
mm,
So I think this is that type of game, right? The hype, the NFL kickoff, hanging the banner, right? Cooper
bring
Cup
it.
going against the young cornerbacks. We got Josh Allen with the same group. I think they both sling the ball a lot, and I think this will be a high scoring affair. Both go over 300, in my opinion. Take
All
the over
right.
on both.
All right. That's a high expectation, but that's all right.
Another thing
Could
worth
happen.
mentioning, though, is both teams do a really good job of protecting the quarterback. So let's dive into this offensive line a little bit. Um, a couple things with the offensive lines is they've had really a lot of continuity, it seems like, but both units have been in the top 10. The top 4 teams with the fewest sacks allowed had double digit wins last year. The last 4 Super Bowl winners had 31 or fewer sacks on the season. The Bills were allowed 27 sacks last year. It's second fewest to Tampa Bay. And the Rams were 7th with 31. They were tied with Philly and the Chargers. So both really good at, not allowing
Yes.
sacks.
Well, I think what we need to do is give a lot of context here, right? You and I are Bills fans, so we know them in and out. The Rams have certainly had continuity. Had continuity. They now lost their leader really in their left tackle and Andrew Whitworth, and now have a new starting guard, Coleman Shelton. So right guard, left tackle. That's a lot of turnover on an offensive line. The Buffalo Bills last season, when you say they gave up the fewest sacks, that is a skewed stat if I've ever heard one. Watch the games. Josh Allen did not allow them to give sacks on Josh Allen, but the offensive line was not very good for a lot of those games, most of those games. However, when they gained the continuity at the end of the season is when we started to see the consistency and the better run game. Obviously, the offensive line is involved with that too. So the run game got better, protecting Josh Allen got better. There were, less penalties. It was more perfect by the last 4 regular season games when the Bills had that continuity on the offensive line. And a lot of that has turned over for the Buffalo Bills. I think the only change is left guard is they brought in Roger Saffold, who's the projected starting left guard, and Ike Bacher, who played a few games, is on injury as well, out with injury as well, the pup list. So you still have the starters, and if anything, you've upgraded with Saffold. Whereas the Rams, you lose your true loss is the leadership of Andrew Whitworth, both on the team and on the offensive line for certain. And the question of the new guard and how can he live up to expectations now after the Super Bowl win. So I'm more concerned about the Rams. Yes, the Rams offensive line did a better true job last season of protecting Matt Stafford, right? And Josh Allen protected himself, and then the offensive line kicked in later. So both teams, it's hard to sack the quarterback. I'm more confident in that staying the same for the Buffalo Bills than I am for this new offensive line of the Rams. They have
Right.
to live up to that expectation more.
And I think it's more like you say, yeah, Josh Allen escapes. He's got mobility. He knows how to stiff
Yes.
arm defensive ends. We've seen him stiff arm Aaron Donald before. But it's more like the relationship. Like I think the offensive line for Buffalo, they understand what Josh likes. They understand his moves. I've seen him
Mm-hmm.
many times. He likes to roll out to the right. He likes to step up to the right. And I think the offensive line is part of that, right? So for them to not allow a lot of sacks, I think is more of a team chemistry thing between the quarterback and the offensive line, the
True.
5 guys up front, rather than just Josh doing it all, right? They flow really well together. They're going to let the rusher go around the edge so Josh can step up into the right and have a running lane, right? So I think there is some technique involved there. Obviously, the Rams are more, misdirection, quick passing. So it's a different style. There you can't even really compare them, in my opinion. But it's definitely a credit to the offensive line and the relationship they have
Mm-hmm.
with the quarterback style. So yeah, so I think any team that doesn't allow a lot of sacks, statistically, it sounds like they're going to be successful. Both of these teams are definitely in that conversation. But you are correct. There is a little bit of turnover here, so there is some question marks. Will it be the same chemistry? We simply have to watch to find out. So let's lead to the running game, though, because I think in the running game, run blocking is offensive line.
Correct.
You know, I understand the running back has to hit the hole and things like that, but a good offensive line that can run block, opens those holes up bigger, makes it easier for the running back to find it, right? So better bet over under Singletary 44 and a half yards or Cam Akers 44 and a half yards.
Yeah, I love that this is the same number for both of these backs. Very comparable backs in some of the situations. Oh, they use multiple running backs. There's not necessarily reliant on the run game. However, I am taking the over majorly for Devin Singletary. I actually think he's going to get the majority of the carries for the Buffalo Bills now, an overwhelming majority. I mean, like if there were 20, he's getting 15 and the other guys are getting 5. Zach Moss, James Cook now on this roster. They're going to be involved in the offense as well, but I believe that Singletary is the true RB1 on this team, and he showed that again at the end of the last season when that offensive line was more consistent. He was averaging a lot more yards per carry and doing a lot better overall. Cam Akers, I'm taking the under for the opposite reason, actually. The Bills' defensive line is now a little bit more improved to go against the run. Von Miller is brought in. Everybody knows about his pass rush ability, but he's actually also really good against the run. And they brought in a few big bodies up front. They have their consistency in Ed Oliver, and he's never had this caliber of other guys next to him, right? So I just believe that the Bills' defensive line is going to be shutting down the run all season long and making you rely on the pass. And Akers is a shared back, obviously Henderson in the mix there too. That's why I'm keeping him under the 44.5-yard mark. But Singletary, I expect him well over that. This is one of my favorite bets of this game.
I'm actually going to go the opposite. Cam Akers over 44 and a half. He comes back healthy. He hasn't played in a long time, so that has me a little concerned, but he's only splitting carries with one other person. When you look at the Bills roster this year, there's 3 running backs that could get carries. Zach Moss, James Cook. I think they're going to feature James Cook. James Cook has played in the SEC. He's faced the top talent. I think he's going to adjust pretty quickly. And I think plus Josh Allen cuts into Singletary's attempts as well. Because there's 4 running backs, including the quarterback, I think Singletary, gets his yards taken away. So I go under 44 and a half on Singletary. I'm going to go over on Cam Akers, especially with that misdirection. It's very favorable for the running
totally
back.
Opposite of me. You really think you're a Bills fan? You really don't believe that Singletary is RB1?
I'm gonna have to get. We're gonna have to get a siren graphic here for bias alert. Bias alert.
I'm telling you, I know this team, though. This Singletary is RB1. James Cook, how many times have we seen Sean McDermott not rely on rookies early in the season? He lets them learn the game, and then he puts them in.
Yeah,
don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about
that's
here.
My line.
Zach Moss, they completely lost the respect with him 2 years ago, last year during the season.
Okay.
He was inactive. He's earned his role back, but he's RB3. There's no question about it. He's the goal line guy, the short yardage guy. Devin Singletary is the reliable running back on this team for this season.
And Josh Allen. Josh Allen gets about a third of the carries.
Josh Allen's always going to do what he does, but I also do believe they want to lower Josh Allen. They want to lower Josh Allen's carries always.
I'm still upset about you stealing my line. I'm the one who hates rookies. I'm the one who doesn't trust rookies every year.
That's true.
I do
but
think
Sean
James
McDermott
Cook
doesn't
different.
either.
I think James Cook is different. He played on a national championship team, top tier talent in college. I just think it's a little different. Trained with Dalvin Cook, trained with Singletary in the offseason. I think he's going to come in ready. I think he's going to have a bigger role. And you're absolutely right about Zach Moss being the third string running back. However, when the offense is struggling or seems kind of cold, not moving the ball a lot, he comes in and he'll hit somebody and deliver a spark, right? Sure. So that is his role. Will we see that? I don't know, but that option's always there. I still stand by my bet. Let's get into the receiving core. We beat the running backs up here. I think Cooper Kupp will be successful versus this secondary. Cooper Kupp had a huge year last year. 16 touchdowns, almost 2,000 receiving yards, won a Super Bowl. I mean, everyone saw it, right? The guy's great at the option play. The relationship Stafford and him have on the field is really something impressive to watch. So I think he has a successful day. The NFL doesn't have any answers for him. I think the secondary with the young cornerbacks here, Elam, Dane Jackson. Um, I think that's a good matchup for the Rams. What's your
Yeah, I
thought?
mean, when you have a guy like Cooper Cup, he's going to have success no matter who he's facing, pretty much. And in this game, normally we'd love to see him pair up against Trey White, but Trey White is out, as we mentioned. And now, without a doubt, the Rams are game planning to take advantage of the young Bills cornerbacks. You are going to target these guys on the field and find them. Dane Jackson came on last year and did a pretty good job, right? He became number 2 cornerback and filled that role very well. And now the Bills have 2 rookies, Kyer Elam and Christian Benford, who are expected to play time at CB2. And if you're Matt Stafford, you are going to be staring those guys down to see how they play. New guys on this team, you have got to challenge them. Rookies, you have got to challenge them. And this isn't going to be a problem for Stafford. He's a veteran. He knows what to look for. He knows where those guys are going to be. And that's going to help, I think, the Rams and Cooper Kupp have a big game against the Bills.
Yeah, Dane Jackson started 6 games last year. He's targeted 40 times, 20 completions.
One stat to not overlook here, though, is the consistency that the Bills have at safety in Hyde and Poyer, the best safety tandem in the league. Call me biased or not, I'll put those two up against anybody. But the fact that they are so consistent, they've played with each other, they know this defense under Sean McDermott well, they will uplift the cornerback position. And I think that's a lot of what you saw with the Bills at the end of last season when Trey White was out. The safeties are going to help out those rookies, so it won't be a destruction of the Bills' number 1 ranked defense going into the season because we have these 2 guys at cornerback who are not normally, not named Trey White, basically. But I think that certainly the Rams are going to be able to take some advantage there.
Yeah, for sure. Levi Wallace, who started a lot of games last year for Buffalo, signs with Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Kyer Elam drafted 23rd, first overall. Christian Benford drafted in the 5th round. We saw Jordan Poyer have some injuries in the offseason. We saw Micah Hyde have some injuries. They're both going to play, but will they be 100%?
Hope so.
Kyer Elam, 4th cornerback taken in the draft behind Stingley, Gardner, and McDuffie. Obviously, we talked about Trey White. What about Stephon Diggs, on the other hand? How do you think he matches up against the Rams secondary with Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, that's a tough matchup, right? I mean, Jalen Ramsey is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. So Stephon Diggs, though, is one of the best receivers in the NFL. This is a great matchup to watch. You want to see who's going to win. But when you tend to have those number 1 versus number 1 matchups, it's going to go both ways, right? He's going to cover him well, and then when Diggs gets open, Allen's going to find him. The one thing Diggs and Allen have going for them is their chemistry is absolutely electric on the field. I think Josh Allen could keep his eyes closed and know where Diggs is and throw the ball to him and know if he's covered or open or not. It's that good. But the benefit here is even if Ramsey is covering Diggs the whole game, Josh Allen has a ton of other weapons he's going to utilize in this game. And somebody is going to be open on the play if you only have, Diggs single covered with Ramsey. And I don't necessarily trust the defense, the coverage ability of the rest of the defense against the likes of the Bills' other receivers. I really like Knox in this game. He's probably the receiver I think is going to get the most yards for the Bills. But who knows with Gabriel Davis? Remember the last time we saw Gabriel Davis, he's stepping into that number 2 role for the Buffalo Bills full time now. The last time we saw Gabriel Davis in the playoffs, he was breaking records and getting massive touchdown plays and everything. He is going to be available in this game if Diggs is certainly covered. So there's other weapons that Josh Allen has, and the Bills are going to utilize them the right way. Isaiah McKenzie, the slot receiver, who has the speed ability and the trick play ability, he's going to be out there a lot more for the Bills. So the Bills offense, I think, has a lot of other options, even if Diggs doesn't quite have the game you expect from a number 1 wide receiver like him.
Yeah, well said. Let's move on to the better bet. Over under Cooper Kupp 90.5 yards or Stephon Diggs at 68.5 yards.
Yeah, so here we already talked about both of these players a little bit. I'm over on Cooper Kupp. I think that he's just going to continue to do what he did last year. I think he averaged 145 yards a game. That's absolute insanity. And this is a matchup that we talked about that he is going to be the target you're looking for if you're Matthew Stafford. So I go over that. I'll give him 96 yards, let's say.
Okay.
Diggs, I'm actually taking the under on Diggs here. I think he hovers at max around the 65, but probably more around the 58-60 mark. Because again, Josh Allen has all those other weapons to spread the ball around to. Diggs is going to do his job by taking up the coverage and let Josh Allen open up to those other weapons.
I think we're going to agree on this one. I'll definitely going over on Cup. Diggs is that 68.5 is about where I have him at, so I could go either way. But I think I'll go under just because I think they are going to run the football a lot more in this game, just to kind of throw things off a little bit, little deception. But Cooper Cup over 90 yards in every game last year, except for week 1
Oh
in
boy.
Arizona, which is 64 yards.
Okay.
Had double-digit yards per reception in every game except for 2.
Wow.
Yeah,
That tells you.
40% of Stafford's touchdowns were to Cooper Cup. The guy, there's no answers for him, right? Around the league, there's no answers. Stephon
MVP
Diggs.
caliber.
Stephon Diggs, however, the only player in the NFL with 150 plus targets in each of the past 2 seasons. So 2 high caliber receivers. It comes down to game plan at this point, right?
Yeah, and
Go
when we're
ahead.
talking about the bets here, again, just to give you some context, Dawson Knox is at over under 37.5 yards. Another one I absolutely love the over for that bet in this game. I think he absolutely gets more than 40. And like I said, if there's a receiver on the Bills who can go over 100, I think it's going to be Knox, the tight end technically, but receiving yards wise, over 100. I'll take Dawson Knox in this one. And for the Rams, I mean, after the drop off from Cup, is pretty hard in terms of the yards that they're expected to get. So I wouldn't necessarily touch those other bets, but I do expect Cup to get his.
Right, and I think Allen Robinson is another good bet. There is young corners here. I mean, the Bills play a lot of zone. They get a lot of help from the safeties and the linebackers, but I think Allen Robinson could be a sneaky bet here. Do you have his yardage up?
Yes, it's 64.5 for Allen Robinson, which I think is a little too high to touch. We don't know what Allen Robinson is in this offense. Compare and contrast that to Gabe Davis, who's at 61.5. I think that, again, Gabe Davis, could he go over that? Yes, I absolutely think so, but I'm not betting on that one. I'm avoiding that one. Allen Robinson completely avoiding or taking the under here just because the last time we saw Gabriel Davis, he was setting records, we said. The last time we saw Allen Robinson, he was trending down. He's completely not going the right direction. Granted, a lot of that was probably the offense he found himself in. So although I think is trending up more than, he was before when he was dropping, we don't know what he's going to be. So 65 yards is a little bit much for me to guess that he's definitely going to get that and then put my money down on it.
Yeah, I do like the matchup, but again, like you said, we haven't seen a lot. But if you're an aggressive bettor, that's one I would take or I would consider. It's too early in the season for me to go aggressive, for sure.
It's a long season.
Yeah, talk to me later on that. All right, game picks and predictions. Let's bring up our lines. And let's start with the over-under, 52.5. Do you think this game could be that high-scoring matchup that we anticipate?
I actually think it could be, but I'm taking the under 52.5 points for this game. I'm not sure that both teams will reach the 30-point mark or close to it in order to get to that 52.5 overall, a 30, to 28 score or something like that. I just don't think the scoring is going to be that good. Let's not overlook the defenses here, right? The Bills have a really good defense, number 1 coming into the season, I believe. The Rams have a really good defense. When you have Aaron Donald, the best player in the world, you tend to be very good on defense. And although I'm favoring the Bills in the matchup, meaning I think the Bills are going to score more points, maybe 28-17, that doesn't quite reach the 52.5 mark. So I'm definitely taking the under on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go over here because last time we saw both of these offenses, the defenses had no answers. Right. And I think that the winner of this game will be in the mid 30s. So it's over 30. And the loser, I think they're too good not to score. So I think it would be in the 20s. So that, to me, that's an easy over because these two teams have solid quarterbacks. I like Sean McVay and his game plan and the deception. Nobody can stop Josh Allen. That alone is enough for me to take the over on this.
All right. All right, we disagree again, Eric. Wow, this is getting
Yeah,
fun.
it is finally. Been agreeing on every show so far, so it's nice to have some parity here. All right, yeah. So, what do you think? What's the final score?
Well, I think it's going to hover somewhere around that 28 or 31 for the Buffalo Bills and 17 or 16 for the LA Rams. So I'm taking the under 52.5. I'm taking the Bills winning this game. I'm taking the money line. So Bills on the money line. Bills on the spread is only minus 2.5. So I'll take the Bills at the Rams. I know this is an away game, and but Bills Mafia is showing up in LA, and I think that's going to give them a little bit of an edge. Yes, the Rams are hanging their banner. And to me, that is all the motivation that this Buffalo Bills squad is going to need. They're going to see that banner hanging and say to themselves, that needs to be us next year. And we're going to come out and punch this team in the face.
I'm actually going to take the Rams here, 33-28 over the Buffalo Bills. They're hanging the banner. There's a lot to like about the team. I like the matchup of the Bills or the Rams defense versus the Bills receivers. I don't think there's going to be an answer for Cooper Kupp. No one stopped him to this point. You know, you got some young cornerbacks back there. I just think Cooper Kupp's going to have a day. So I'll take the Rams 33-28 at home. Doesn't mean the Bills aren't still Super Bowl favorites. It still doesn't mean they're a bad team. They dropped their first game last year. I just think it's all Rams, right? They're hanging the banner at home, no traveling.
I can't believe, I know you're a Bills fan, Eric, but I can't believe you're taking the Rams in this one. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising, like you said. It's not like, oh my God, it's like when the Jaguars beat the Bills last season. This isn't some crazy upset if the Rams end up winning it and pulling it off. But man, yeah, how do you not feel the energy of being a Bills fan in this one and know that the Bills are going to find a way to pull this off? I don't know, man. We totally disagree there. And I think Bills Mafia is going to have something to say to you after picking the Rams
That's
in this
fine.
one.
I'll eat my words. I'd be happy to eat my words as a fan. But when I
Absolutely.
break down the game, I like the matchup of Cooper Kupp versus secondary. And we'll see. No one's had answers for him yet. I hope the Bills do, but I just don't think it's going to happen. All right, that's all we got. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out our other shows on the channel. We did all the divisions, got all the odds ready for you. We're going to have all the picks ready for your Sunday game. Tune in Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time for the post-game tailgate.
Live. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. We're coming on live to talk about all the football that happened up to that point. Should be very, very exciting. And the NFL is back, people. Get hyped. We have football. This is amazing. Don't forget, toss your hat in the ring.